Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on the first two books in the Iron Druid Chronicles by Kevin Hearne. Hounded is book one in the Iron Druid Chronicles by Kevin Hearne. Atticus O'Sullivan is a 2,100-year-old Irish druid living peacefully in Arizona with his Irish wolfhound Oberon. That peace is shattered when an angry Celtic god wants to reclaim a sword that Atticus currently has in his possession. Atticus is going to need the help of some witches, some goddesses, and his werewolf and vampire lawyers if he wants to get a little peace and quiet. Hexed is book two in the Iron Druid Chronicles, and this time Atticus is about to sign a beneficial non-aggression treaty with a local coven of witches. The timing is perfect as a new sinister coven arrives in town, and Atticus and his new friend of witches are going to have to unite to destroy them. So, after that plot synopsis for both of these books, I guess just a quick disclaimer before I do head into this review. Even though I did enjoy these first two books, the thing is, I've had both of these books lying around on my shelves for like years now at this point, and unfortunately I don't really see myself continuing this series in the future, alas. Like I said, I did still like these, but I just have so many other books lying around, so many other series, and I have to pick and choose at this point when it comes to book series and whatnot. So yeah, these first two books in the Iron Druid Chronicles, you guys, unfortunately this is going to be it. But I still definitely want to share my thoughts and feelings on these first two books and whether or not this is a series you guys may enjoy or may not enjoy, just depending on, you know, the types of fiction you like. So yeah, I'm definitely not going to head into any sort of spoilers with these first two books. I'm just going to kind of keep my thoughts pretty vague in general for the most part, and kind of the pros and cons of this series thus far within just two books. So yeah, what I did really like about these first two books, they tackled Irish mythology, and that's just really cool. I think most of us are very familiar with Greek mythology, Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, even Roman mythology, you know what I mean? But Irish mythology, I think a lot of us kind of almost forget about that. Like, oh, that's a thing. I certainly do anyway. I always forget Irish mythology is indeed a thing. So I really liked these two books really tackling quite heavily Irish mythology and, you know, a lot of the lore and myth and legends and the creatures and gods and goddesses and people that inhabit that mythology and where our main character Atticus stands within that. As I said in my plot synopsis, Atticus, he's over 2,000 years old. He's a druid. He takes a lot of his powers from the earth, if you will. It's all his magical abilities. You know, I'm sitting there saying he's a druid, and you may be thinking something like Merlin from Arthurian legend, you know, like he waves a little wand around or something like that, and he has magic like that, like he's Dumbledore or Gandalf or something. But for Atticus, his magical powers are very much something more elemental, that he has to really kind of be one with like the earth, if you will, because well, that's kind of another great interesting thing about his character, that he can have moments of weakness if he uses an overabundance of magic at any given time. Whenever he does use up the amount of magic that he has stored within his body, he has to like strip down naked and like lay down in some earth and cover himself up with dirt and whatnot. So I really liked that about his character, where the source of his magic comes from. Like I said, it's all very elemental and earthy and whatnot, and it makes it just a lot more interesting, I think, compared to when you think of magic typically when it comes to the fantasy genre. You know, people either waving wands around or spell casting and things like that, you know. Something else that I definitely really appreciated with these first two books was Kevin Hearne's sense of humor. Oh my god, I loved his sense of humor. It's like my type of humor. Yeah, guys, I'm someone who definitely appreciates good old-fashioned nerdy humor, pop culture references. I get a thrill and a kick out of that sort of thing. Now, that type of humor may not be for everybody, so kind of judge there at your own risk, you know, what type of humor you appreciate. If you don't like nerdy humor, if you don't like pop culture references, this is probably not the series for you, because Atticus, like I said, he's over 2,000 years old. The man has lived. He has done a good amount of living. He has gone through the decades, and he's watched so much movies and television and books, you know. He has an overabundance of knowledge of just about everything. So yeah, he'll randomly, in the heat of a dramatic moment or something, when he's talking with either a friend or an enemy, you know, in the heat of a moment, he'll just make some sort of joke like about Lord of the Rings or something like that. And then the other person may be like, what? Like, they don't have no clue what he's talking about. But you, the reader, if you're kind of in on those pop culture references, they're great laugh out loud moments that you know exactly what Atticus is trying to get at. So yeah, that's definitely another big huge plus with this series, is the sense of humor and comedic elements. It's a series so far with these first two books. It's a series that doesn't really take itself overly seriously at all. It knows how to play and it knows how to have fun, which is important. Now, all of that being said, all of the pluses with this series, let me get into some of the cons of this series, some of my negatives, if you will. I think what this book kind of suffers from, and I have noticed this a lot when I have read, I guess, urban fantasy. Would this be called urban fantasy? When I have read urban fantasy in the past, I've not really read much of it, but a similar trend that a lot of urban fantasy tends to have for me is that they tend to be a lot more about plot and action and kind of throwing in all of the world building, and especially if it does deal with mythology. Their big thing is just throwing out like all the who's who and what's what of that mythology. But unfortunately, in the meantime, I think character development is lacking. Like Atticus himself, character development is lacking. There's development lacking in other characters, and then even within just various different relationships that Atticus has, there's a lot of lacking development there as well. So that's definitely a big huge minus for me, that these two books were very much just very plot based, very action based, give definitely just more of a sense of moving from point A to point B to point C, you know. And I mean, there's nothing really wrong with that, you know. That formula works perfectly well with these books. But yeah, if you're someone like me who's kind of wanting a little bit more, if you're wanting more quieter moments where characters can breathe and relax, and you can really truly get to know characters in a lot more detail, you know. So yeah, kind of think about that before you head into the series as well, what you're personally looking for. And as I keep repeating, Atticus, our main character, who is a druid who has lived for over 2,000 years, it's like, once again, I wanted and craved more about his character. This is a guy who has lived and done some things, and a lot of little backstory or just snippets of his backstory that you get, it's just that. It's like little just small details that he'll kind of just randomly say, and you'll kind of get this idea of, oh, there's an interesting story there, but he never fully goes into it. So it's things like that. It's like, well, that sounds like a really great story right there. I want to learn more about that. Give me a slower, quieter moment with Atticus where he can explore that in greater detail or something, you know. So yeah, once again, that could just be a me problem, you know, because definitely on Goodreads, there's plenty of people who freaking love these books, and that's totally fine, you know. Like I said, I still enjoyed these. It's just they were definitely kind of lacking character for me, which I was kind of really looking forward to, if you will. And as with most urban fantasy I have come across in recent years, it does seem like there's also just this additional problem of just an overabundance of characters. As I already kind of mentioned, these first two books often kind of felt like a who's who within Irish mythology, and kind of just throwing out a bunch of people who a lot of times would maybe just be in the book for 1 or 2 chapters, you know, have their quick interaction with Atticus, and that would be it. So yeah, a lot of times there's just an overabundance of characters, and then at some point, like later in the novel, near the end, that character might reappear, or Atticus might remember something that character said, and then in the meantime I'm thinking, wait, who were they again? Because they only had such a small amount of page time. It's a little confusing sometimes. And another big negative for me with both these books is definitely just the lack of really interesting, good villains. I say this all the time. I am a sucker for a good villain. Sometimes a villain can make or break a book or a movie or a television show for me. I just love all things with villains because sometimes they're just the most intriguing, fascinating characters, sometimes more so than your hero or heroine, you know? And yeah, these books, yeah, Atticus has like his foes and enemies that he's fighting, but since this is entirely in his perspective and point of view, you're only witnessing what Atticus is doing. So you have no idea what the villains are up to. And so then finally Atticus has his confrontation with the villains at the end of each of these books, and it's like these people are threats. I don't really feel threatened by them. Why should Atticus feel threatened by them, you know? So yeah, definitely a big minus for me, that just the lack of really good, interesting villains in this. But I do want to end here really quickly on some positives. I do want to touch on Atticus himself. What there is of Atticus, you know, like I said, there's not a hell of a lot of depth there with his character, but what is there, I do just totally fully love about his character. He's a guy who's done some living, he's seen some things, he uses humor a lot to kind of provoke levity in any given situation. Atticus can be prone to paranoia. Once again, he's a guy who's lived for a very long time. He has some trust issues. So yeah, he's very prone to paranoia, but even despite that, he's someone who is a great listener, and he's willing to listen to people and really dig into people. He's also a really fantastic judge of character. He can just immediately kind of tell when someone's lying to him, when someone's bullshitting him. He's very quick on his feet. He's very quick to action. He never lets himself get easily overwhelmed or confused or anything. So he's a great hero to these first two books. Someone that you really do want to root for, someone that you trust, someone that you know is going to do the right thing. And yeah, I do. I in general did like his interactions with other characters. Once again, not a lot of depth kind of within those interactions in some ways, but yeah, I really liked him as a character. And once again, thanks to Kevin Hearne's sense of humor and comedy, it really makes Atticus someone, despite his great ancient age, it makes him somebody who can be relatable to a modern audience. And you guys, I do gotta mention Atticus's Irish wolfhound named Oberon. I loved this dog. You guys, oh my god, this dog, whenever he was in any given chapter, this dog stole the scene. Atticus, through like a nice little nifty spell, Atticus is able to communicate with his dog, like through their brain waves and whatnot. They can just sit there and communicate. No one else can communicate with Oberon, but Atticus can through spell work and whatnot. I loved the relationship between Atticus and his dog. That is perhaps the best, most developed relationship, weirdly enough, this connection between human and dog. So yeah, for that alone, I would recommend picking these books up just for the dog. Because I was sitting here like, oh no, I'm only reading these first two books. It's like, I want to know what happens to Oberon. Hopefully he never gets killed in the series. If Kevin Hearne, seriously, if anybody has read all these books, please tell me Kevin Hearne does not kill Oberon at some point, because I will cry. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on the first two books in the Iron Druid Chronicles by Kevin Hearne. As you can see, for the most part, I did really like these first two books, but I gotta pick and choose from my collection of books, my never-ending collection of books that I have, and unfortunately I will not continue with these. I don't know, never say never, obviously. Who knows, sometime in the future I may be like, you know what, I would like to revisit these. Or, you know, better yet, how about somebody make a TV show out of this? That would be satisfactory. I think I would maybe prefer this as, like, instead of consuming it through a book format, I think I would like to consume it through a TV show. I think that would be really fun and interesting. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, you guys, let me know in the comments below if you have read the Iron Druid Chronicles. Hey, am I missing out by not continuing? Just let me know. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.